It's early. It's so early that I didn't even bother to put my contacts in. You're going to get classic glasses Arav today because welcome. Today we're talking about the brand new 2021 AlphaTauri driven by Pierre Gasly and Yuki Tsunoda this year. First and foremost, AlphaTauri, please, dear every other F1 team, why did we have to launch this car at 9 a.m. CET, i.e. 8 a.m. GMT? Far too early for someone like me. I don't care for 8 a.m., but there we go. And it launched, and it looks, well, first off the bat, let's talk about the livery. I actually really dig it. The base being the navy blue this time rather than the white, really dig that. I will say also, before you pass judgment, definitely look at the photos that are the real life, actual, like, in-person model of the new livery on an old chassis versus the renders. So basically, AlphaTauri have launched their car, and they launched it in person and in 3D renders. Now, the 3D render is the actual 2021 car, and the in-person model they used was literally last year's car with the new livery. But you can see in person, the new livery looks a lot nicer. So out in the flesh on circuit, it's going to look good. Whereas in the renders, it maybe looks like a little bit of like a toy car, looks a bit off. But no, I really dig it. It always looked awkward last year, I felt personally, with their livery. It was the first time we had AlphaTauri as a livery, obviously. Very exciting, but it was a bit awkward having that blue kind of cut off in a square at the top of the chassis and then the white at the front. Just, I don't know, it made it look very boxy, I think. So I think this year, continuing the navy blue in a nice streak line to the front nose, looks a bit more streamlined, looks a bit more forward-facing. So in general, the car is going to look nicer out on circuit and in person in those photo shots. The way the light bounces off that kind of matte blue, matte kind of, whole white thing going on at the bottom. Yeah, I like it. It looks a bit more like a race car. I think last year's car, although it was nice, it was, different, strikingly different. It did look a bit awkward at many times, I will admit, on circuit, and it just didn't look right. So I think this livery looks a lot better, and I'm sure the onboard will also look a little bit nicer as well. A little bit cleaner in terms of those non-existent weird lines we had maybe last year with the white, the blue, and then the Honda badge in blue. So yeah, as a livery, I rate it. Let me know what you guys make of it. I've seen a few mixed reactions, a few kind of, I'm not too bothered. It is just kind of last year's livery inverted, I will admit, in a way, in a simple terms. But no, I dig it, and a lot of you guys are as well online, I'm seeing as well on Twitter. But let's talk about the actual car itself. So there is some things to actually talk about with the AlphaTauri. Now, of course, the kind of preface to every single car is that this year the regulations are frozen. So the actual chassis is the same. Teams have a token system, and they can choose what tokens they want to spend on the car in different areas of the car. So it seems like AlphaTauri, according to reports, have developed more on the nose and the kind of suspension area. So that's where they've spent most of their tokens. And you can see that in the renders of the 2021 Challenger. The slimmer nose is there, a bit more of a different profile to it. And then they've also got a bit of a slimmer cape underneath the nose. And if they have changed the suspension, that will go hand in hand with the nose. Because a slimmer nose like that obviously allows a bit more airflow to go underneath to that cape, that kind of scooting bit of bodywork that we've seen now. That's been a case for many teams for a few years now, and that scoop obviously allows to get some air from the front of the car and scoop it down underneath to the barge wood area, to the floor area. So if they've gone for a thinner approach, and it definitely does look like it from the render shots anyway, without even doubly confirming it, that they've slimmed out and kind of changed the profile of the entire nose cone structure. If they have changed that, that'll be to obviously get a bit more airflow to that cape, and then vice versa to the floor, to the barge wood area. And on that note, they've also changed the barge board end plates, the kind of uprights. I don't exactly know what to officially call them. I just call them barge board uprights. And they've gone for the kind of fan approach, the kind of griddle approach that Red Bull have had in the past, that Haas have also had. Ferrari have also deviled with it, where they've had like lots of streaks, the kind of blinder kind of effect, like those weird blinds that you have sometimes in houses. So they've gone with that on the side of the barge wood area. So with that, I would probably imagine imagine, very likely in pre-season testing, we see some different bargeboard configurations to kind of work with that. You'll then have the new nose, obviously, which is going to have a bit of a different profile of air flowing through underneath to behind it, and then that's going to want to interact with those new uprights on either side of the car. So I imagine in pre-season testing, as I say, it's not uncommon for teams to kind of keep a few secrets for the launch and not really show off their true cards or test things out until pre-season when less people can take photos maybe and kind of look intently. So I imagine they'll be bringing new parts of that as well pre-season, or at least the start of the season. I'd be surprised they weren't, to make sure it works the best way possible with the new nose and the upright barge boards. But that's interesting to know that they've gone with that style on the barge board area, in the Sidepod end plate rather, that's similar and something that Red Bull has done in the past, because AlphaTauri and Red Bull as the parent company have talked about AlphaTauri being more of an equal sister team to Red Bull, which is very ambitious for AlphaTauri, because i.e. Toro Rosso, you know, in the past, they've never really matched Red Bull in any kind of regard. They've had a few instances. Obviously, last year was a massive one where, you know, obviously Gasly was able to win the Italian Grand Prix, and, you know, they have had some amazing results in the last few years, and obviously as Toro Rosso back in the Vettel days, they were able to win a race at Monza as well, but they've never really ever looked like they're going to be an equal team to Red Bull. But it seems like they're wanting to try at their best to keep on pushing the team now towards that. We saw that in a way with also how they're talking about Pierre Gasly. So let's talk a little bit about just the team as kind of a whole, previewing it going into the next year with this lineup of Gasly and Tsunoda. Obviously, we've heard plenty about Gasly not going back to Red Bull. That, you know, Helmut Marko and Horner are adamant that he's going to be a leader at AlphaTauri, and a leader because they want that team to step it up a bit, and they feel like Gasly's best place just to stay there, stay comfy in that environment, and help them pull themselves up. And you've got to remember now, with the cost cap coming in, and a team like AlphaTauri will stand to benefit from that kind of cost cap, and maybe there's a chance they can start to equalize a bit with the Red Bull operation in terms of the amount of money they're spending, in terms of how much, you know, how much backing they basically have at the factory. Might be more equalized to the Red Bull team, but it is still very lofty. They didn't make the most of last year when Ferrari was struggling. They could have maybe got them and got 6th place in the championship. There are a few races, we said this a lot on Backseat Driver for AlphaTauri, there'd be races where they turn up and they learn more about the car, and so by the time they get to the race, they've got a really good race car. Vice versa, there were races where they were just nowhere. It was baffling to see no pace in qualifying. They were slower, knocked out in Q2, and then they didn't have that much race pace to maybe get those, you know, last bit points that you wanted to maybe get to actually try and get those points over Ferrari. So in a way, it was a great season for them. Don't get me wrong, they won a bloody race with Pierre Gasly, and Gasly definitely was one of the best drivers of last season, I think, in my opinion, and many drivers' opinions on that same grid. But there were also parts where they didn't make the most of it. So this season, it's going to be weird for them in terms of expectations, because you imagine Ferrari will improve. So where are they going to really aim for? Are they going to be aiming once again for kind of P7? If they really are looking for that lofty ambition, is P6 maybe still something they want to try and aim for? It kind of depends on how much Ferrari make a step up, because I imagine obviously Alpine, formerly known as Renault, McLaren and Racing Point will all still be at that higher level in the midfield compared to where AlphaTauri were, where they weren't as consistently there versus those guys. There were obviously races where AlphaTauri were clearly racing Alpine or Renault at the time and McLaren's, but then, like I said, other ones where they just weren't there. So it's frustrating in a way, because I want to see Gasly do well, and you've got an exciting prospect in Yuki Tsunoda. If you don't know, this guy looks very, very exciting. In all the junior categories, he's made his way up very, very quickly. He's had some great races in F2 last season, and I think he's got a lot of potential. I think that as a pairing is very, very exciting. You're Gasly coming in off such a strong year, and then Franz Tost is really backing Yuki to be fast, but also have some, obviously, debut rookie niggling issues in Formula 1, but that comes with the territory. And AlphaTauri, no stranger to having, obviously, rookie debuts in their team. And finally, let's go back to the car a bit now. Now, away from the actual chassis and the Aero or anything new on the car there, underneath the car is new, and something I'll be kind of going further into with the Red Bull launch, but Honda have brought upgrades to the power unit for this year. So the backstory is they're actually going to delay these power unit developments till 2022 because of the kind of COVID-19 restrictions, and obviously they're unable to get into Europe with the lockdowns and maybe trying to install it and test things out with the Red Bull team in terms of the packaging and whatnot a little bit more efficiently and just test things out essentially. But now, obviously, they announced last year, I can't remember exactly when they announced it, but at some point in the year, they announced that they were going to be leaving the sport because they had different, goals and whatnot for their company, whatever. They were going to leave the sport. So that meant they actually brought forward their 2022 upgrade to this year, which is quite a big deal because not only are they getting an upgrade that's moved forward back into this year that they may have missed out on in terms of them leaving the sport, but then also Honda are going to be now going forwards as a Red Bull engine. Obviously, Red Bull, if you don't know, are taking over the Honda power unit, and the regulations are being frozen for the engine as well, which is a big deal going forward for not only AlphaTauri, but for Red Bull especially. But like I said, I'll talk more about that long-term in the Red Bull video when that car is out, because it's kind of more to do with Red Bull and their ambitions. But what it means for AlphaTauri as well and the Honda power unit, Honda have said that they brought modifications to the internal combustion engine, turbine, and ERS, and also the way it's been installed and packaged into at least the AlphaTauri here. I imagine the Red Bull, but AlphaTauri and Honda have always had a bit more of a closer synergy since they were the first team that actually took on the Honda power unit when they left McLaren. So they've packaged it a little bit nicer, and those modifications to the internal combustion engine, turbine, and ERS, all major benefits that can hopefully maybe see Honda take that extra further step to equalizing to Mercedes. Because as much as Mercedes aren't the same dominant power unit force, and they even have had some niggling issues of their own last season in pre-season, and actually COVID-19 delays actually helped them out, iron those out. They're still the kind of golden class standard for power units right now in Formula One, and Honda is still playing a bit of catch-up. Renault are still doing it, and obviously Ferrari for sure after last year's whole debacle are definitely playing catch-up. But it's a massive step forward to have those three major areas of the power unit to be improved, and for it to be brought forward for this year, because they would have otherwise lost those upgrades because Honda were going to leave the sport. So Honda leave the sport this year with a kind of nice present in a way in terms of giving Red Bull and AlphaTauri these upgrades, and then even more so because those are going to get frozen as we go on long term into the next era of Formula One. But a different livery, so an actual different one compared to the McLaren one, and I like it. Even though it's maybe just inverted, it's a nice change. I think it's a one that looks a bit more of a nicer race car, and sometimes the nicer looking race cars sometimes go a little bit quicker. They say, maybe. That's just fact. But anyway, it's been too early. I'm probably going to go now down a coffee to try and wake myself up for the rest of the day. But if you guys did enjoy this video, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you are new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula One content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.